Hello, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and today we're looking at a first submission by Diana of her horse Zola. Zola is about 10 years old. She's had her for about 6 years. Starting off here in the lunging work, pretty good technique. I like to see how you're keeping the slack out of the line in the right position, so that's good. Looks to me like you're working off of the nose band there with the lunge line, which is okay as long as it doesn't pull too much on it. So starting out here at the walk, this is not bad. Just looking at the horse, once again, we can see as she comes around here, her back is a little bit dropped, and we can see how her belly is a little distended in the flanks, which shows us that she's not really working up through her back as much as we'd like. So you look around here, we kind of see that little pregnant mare kind of look there as her flanks as they're kind of extended. So that tells us the horse hasn't been working up through its back very much, as its core strength is not very good at this point. But of course that will all improve as you go. Now she did say in her tape, talking about this horse being a little inconsistent in the bridle and that sort of thing. But I think for just starting out this work, and she's going to send another video soon, which she says is much improved, but this is actually not bad at all what I see here. Just a couple of things that I see that might be part of your problem a little bit. On that bridle that you have, the nose band is awfully low on the horse's nose, which can put some pressure on the horse's cartilage and kind of tend to annoy them a bit there. You can actually break that cartilage if you pull on it too hard, which is one of the dangers of having a cavesson too low, for instance. So I would actually love to see what this horse would do in a different bridle setup, or even just taking that nose band. Once again, you see how low that nose band is across the horse's nose. Now that's way lower than I would ever put one. And this, of course, is one of those ones that's got the extra straps and things. But if you find that your horse is a little uncomfortable in its mouth with this on, you might want to change to just a normal flash bridle, and if you want to lunge with a cavesson, or just lunge off with a bit in a round pen like this is perfectly fine, as long as the horse's mouth is quiet and closed. Now, if you have a horse that's mouth is very busy, then you don't want to lunge off the bit because the horse hasn't settled with the contact yet, so we want to be careful about that. Also there, not a great idea to let the horse stop and scratch whenever it feels like it. I would send the horse on a little bit for that, as that actually can become a problem. Amber's horse, for instance, had a bit of that problem. They had thinking he could always stop whenever he wanted to and thrust his head to the ground and start scratching the bridle. So we can't really let that go on a lot longer. If she starts to do that a lot, I wouldn't allow that to happen. So once again, I would check with this bit here. I would like to see you put this horse in a different, just a regular flash noseband, or even maybe without even a drop on it at all if the horse doesn't need it. But that's too low and looks a little bit on the tight side to me. Remember, with a drop noseband, you should always be able to get two fingers. It's never to tie the horse's mouth shut. I can't really tell how tight it is there, but it looks a little on the tight side from what I see there. So I would take a little peek at that and be sure that your tack is not causing yourself some problem there, and that could very well be there. Now, however, we do get to quite a good place here with this horse, both on the lunging and riding. That's a good stretch there, and good active trot. Obviously, she stretched and then come back up again, but this is not even bad where she is here. And there she stretches back into it and is much more active over her back. That's really good right there. That's a good rhythm and a good position. The other thing you said, she kind of tosses her head there a little bit too. Sometimes some horses fine, even with the regular cavessons, which is why I sometimes don't use them. So some horses find it very irritating to have something connected to the front of their nose, and they will flip at it all the time, kind of flip their heads at it. So that's something to be careful of. I say, once again, the biggest thing I see here is I would re-examine that bridle and just be sure that noseband isn't too tight, and also that it's not too confining and too low on the horse's nose. But the trot you're getting is quite good here. Once she gets active, obviously she comes up and down there a little bit and stays in it. She needs to stay in it a little better and more consistently. But this is not bad at all, and I look forward to seeing your next videos. You said she's well improved by then, so I don't doubt that at all, because this is all coming quite nice, both here and under saddle. You're having some moments that are very good. Now, when she gets a little inconsistent like that, when the head comes up, that's when you want to just send her forward, keep a little feel of the rein, and just send her forward, as you did just there. That was exactly what you want to do, and that puts her back into the stretch. And you'd want to do the same thing here. Try when you're in a round pen like this, not a round pen, but a pen, to not make the horse make too many square corners. That's why, I definitely prefer a real round pen rather than a square one, because they tend to run into the corners and then pull themselves around. Just like we talk about many times, I hear instructors all the time telling people to, drive the horse into the corner. Well, a circle, or rather a corner, should be a quarter of the smallest circle that you can perform. So on, a big horse, for instance, like a horse like Amber's, he's only just beginning to look like he can, bend through a corner, as opposed to just having almost a half circle at the end of a dressage ring, because he just simply couldn't do any smaller than that. So that's something to consider. Try at times just to stand a little more in place there and try to get the horse going around you, maybe, and at times maybe not using the rail so much as a help, as it tends to drive him a little too far into the corner. But you're doing good with that now, and that's a good swing that I'm seeing there. It's coming quite nice. I like the activity of this horse. She stays pretty active behind, and that's good. Once again, when she comes around there, you can see how the flanks are a little distended there, which tells us, once again, she's not working up to the back as much as we would like her to, but she certainly will begin to do so as you get this horse stretching the way you are doing. It's really good. So once again, I just keep seeing that nose band, and I just keep wanting to loosen it or to put something different on her, as that just looks so low on the horse's nose. So coming back here to the walk, you can see how she kind of threw her head up there a little bit, and how the walk becomes a little disorganized, so to speak, and there we lose the rhythm. So once again, always remembering that the rhythm and the position of the horse's back is what guides everything that we do in training. In other words, if the horse loses the rhythm, we lose the gymnastic quality of the exercise. So always striving for that perfect rhythm, like a metronome. But once again, here she starts to stretch into it a little better, and the walk starts to look better. She starts to be able to pick up her hind legs. You'll notice horses that are hollow always have that look like they're unsticking their legs out of mud or sticky glue paper or something like that when they move. And as the horse stretches down, you'll see they're much more active and able to pick the leg up and swing. It's really just how the horse moves. You can call it biomechanics if you like. I know a lot of people like to banty around that term because it sounds really important, but it's really nothing more than just posture. You're putting the horse in the correct posture that allows the machinery inside the horse, so to speak, how its joints work together, to be able to unify the front and back ends by lifting its back. So remember, a horse that's not lifting through its back is kind of like two men in a horse suit. The two ends are not communicating with one another. We see that in a lot of these very high-level dressage horses. They come back to walk, and they literally can't walk, and they have a very lateral walk, as they walk like a camel or something, or very disorganized, with the back legs seem to barely move at all. Well, that's a very good sign. The walk tells you everything about how a horse has been trained. Really good stretch here. Now this is much more like it, and good level of activity. That's really quite good. I look forward to seeing the next tape on this horse. As you said, you're already preparing, so I think it's going to be interesting to see how much she's changed, and because you'll see it quite drastically in terms of her back. And once again, as she goes around there, she still has that little bit of a look of a pregnant mare there, or slightly one, that as the flanks are distended, but you'll see that will completely disappear, and once again, that little hollow there behind where the saddle would be will disappear as well. As will the horse completely change its structure. That is, the withers will pull up through the shoulders in time, and the horse will have a much more uphill appearance. But once again, good rhythm here. Nothing wrong with this at all. She's stretching into it quite nicely. I like that downwards transition, how smoothly she stepped into it. That was a really good downwards transition, what we should strive for in all gaits. Remember, we never want to have the horse slam on the brakes, just like driving a car. If you slam on the brakes over and over again, pretty soon you'll wear out the tires and the suspension. Well, that's what happens to horses that are constantly stopped. I can remember years ago visiting a place where the famous quarter horse stallion Gunsmoke was, who was a reining horse, and it was just so shocking to see his legs because of all the sliding stops he had done in his life. His fetlock joints had crushed all the way down into the top of his hooves, and he had no flexion in his ankles at all. It was a very sad thing to observe. And once again, that's what happens. When you just keep slamming on the brakes and slamming on the brakes. Once again, far off in today, because people are in a rush, they want to learn to ride and they use up their horses in the process, instead of learning a little more slowly, which would give them a deeper understanding of what they do anyway. But they're all in a big rush to go to horse shows, and they want to practice these hard things over and over and over again. But once again, we cannot just do the hardest thing horses do, like jumping, over and over again. When I grew up, it was very normal that you jumped a horse 2, maybe 3 days a week. And as they progressed and got better, we jumped them less and less, to the point that we're only jumping them when we go to horse shows, because, you only have so many jumps and the horse's legs are gone. And today, with these warm bloods that people think are so strong, they're jumping them every day, and pretty soon they're wearing them out. So you just can't do that. You can't do the hardest thing every day that you do. It's like running a marathon. You don't run a marathon every day. If you're training to run a marathon, you wouldn't be able to walk. So bear that in mind in all things. So getting back on the walk, this walk already looks, or rather getting back on here, the walk looks pretty good already. It's a little slow right here, doing a little bit of ladder work, but that picks up there, quite nice. Now, just one thing I would say for you as a rider, I would like to see you just stretch up and try to flatten your shoulder blades into your back, as I always say, so you just get more control of your body. That's the biggest thing that you're missing here, is you're kind of looking down too much. Your chest is collapsed forward. So you need to just stretch up. Just like we want the horse to have good posture, we want to have good posture on the back of the horse. So think of it this way, when you're on the back of a horse, it should just be like standing up with your knees bent a little bit in good posture. That is, your back straight, but not overly straightened like a little tin soldier or something that stiffens you. So, that's the hardest thing. I remember the best lesson that Nuno Oliveira ever gave me. He stopped me and looked over his little wall and said, "Stop trying to look so elegant and just ride the horse." And that's where it came back to me, that I was so worried about my position that I wasn't riding the horse. So I see people doing that all the time. So once again, but we do want to keep constantly stretching ourselves up so we carry our own weight. The more we kind of collapse over, the more we ask the horse to carry. And just by dropping our chest or head forward, that can really put the horse on the horse's forehand. So we want to get ourselves balanced above the horse. So the only thing I'm missing, as I said here, is you just need to stretch up, flatten your shoulder blades into your back a little bit. Engage your abdominal muscles. Your abdominal muscles should always, just like doing yoga, should engage your core when you're up there. Then you're holding yourself up, and it makes the work that the horse has to do much less. But once again, getting back to your walk here, this looks quite good. For your first submission here, I'm liking it. Once again, you can see how distended the horse's belly is there. Almost looks like a little bit of a pregnant mare there. That's all going to change. You can see the dip behind the saddle there. That's, once again, where the back is beginning to disconnect from the hips, and that's where we end up getting kissing spine, and why that has almost become epidemic in the world today of riding. Is so many horses having this problem. I had someone come to me yesterday telling me that they have a 6-year-old that's having to be operated on, because of it. So, and once again, that can even be caused by horses growing up, without getting sufficient exercise. You should never try to raise horses in small pens. Horses need to move over, preferably hundreds of acres if possible when they're young, in order to develop correctly. So once again, I really like how you're taking your time here in all of this and not trying to force anything. It's all actually coming quite well. She started off a little hollow there in the trot, but as you're just softening her a little bit, that's coming back, and she's beginning to soften and stretch more deeply into the contact. That's a pretty good rhythm. So again, needs to stretch a little bit. There you go, just like that. I think you're going to find this horse is going to come around quite quickly. As I said, I'm looking forward to seeing your next videos. You said she's already well improved over this one, so you're certainly on the right track here. And I like how she brings her head. All you're doing is just raising your hands so she can't come off the bridle. That's just what you want to do. We never want to try to force the horse's head into position. That's not how we get a horse to stretch. We simply take a little more contact on the weight of the rein. The horse's mouth is a very sensitive thing. It's on their gums. Open your mouth and put a piece of metal on your gums and see how it feels. Horses' mouths, unless they've been made completely hard as a rock, but I think that's actually more of a mental thing that it is actually thing in the mouth, because I notice as soon as I get horses to stretch that have been hollow their whole lives, all of a sudden they can feel their mouths and they're perfectly fine. So it really wasn't that, but I think after a while, the horses that put up with it, that is put up with constant tension and this sort of thing, it just kind of check out. Whereas really sensitive horses, like a thoroughbred kind of horse you ride like that, very few of them will check out. They'll usually start trying to hurt you because they don't like the pain, and they're more reactive. So a little bit of canter here, and once this is one of those horses that actually canters pretty well. Not too bad. I wouldn't do this a lot of this, but it's not a terrible canter. She's getting over her back a little bit and able to stretch a little bit, so that's okay. Once again, anything that we can get the horse working correctly in is okay to do. Most horses we find, if their trot is bad, their canter is going to be even worse. But that's not always the case. I think in about, I don't know, some small percentage of horses that I see can actually get over their backs better in the canter than they can in the trot. And if you can, that's the guiding light. So the back guides everything that we do. So if you can get the horse over the back in the canter, even if you can't do it in the trot, and I've seen some that could, you can work the horse to advantage in a canter. If you can't, then the canter is only going to make the horse sore in the back and probably create a lot of other problems as well. But that was a good enough canter that you can do that effectively. And with some good use, just keep it to small periods like you just did there until the horse gets a lot stronger. Once again, that was a little inconsistent in that trot when it came back to it. So you're doing the right thing here to come back to the walk, exactly what you want to do, Never try to push yourself through the wall, and this is what we see people doing all the time, is they encounter resistance, and they end up trying to fight the horse to get over that, and that will never solve the problem. All that will end up doing is breaking the horse in the neck, or in many other ways as well. Now, you did tell me that she does grind occasionally when you're riding. I would check your saddle fit. I definitely would check this bit. I definitely would like to see the horse working in a different bridle. I do think after watching this, I just keep thinking this noseband looks so low on the horse's nose. You got to remember that bottom part of the nose there is quite soft cartilage, and really there shouldn't be any pressure on that. But you're coming back to a good walk here. But I would be curious to see if she does less of that little head tossing thing as you talk about in a more comfortable bit. Not the bit, that is the bridle itself, without that noseband so low. But once again, coming back to a good walk, and that's exactly the thing to do, as we talked about. If you run into a little wall that you can't quite get the trot, come back to where you can get it. So what's important is that the work that we do, that we don't waste our time. I see very many people who kind of even have the idea of stretch, but they work the horse for an hour and then try to stretch it. The stretching is the first thing you can do. Just like an athlete warms up, they warm up and stretch to get ready for the work, and then they warm and stretch down. That's exactly what we want to do with horses. We want to warm them up, stretching them, getting them active, and then work them as high as they can, and then end up back in that same place. That is stretching, swinging, active, and without tension. One thing to realize about the tension thing is how much it affects your safety. A horse that's tense is never a safe horse. It's, if it's tense, it's looking for something to spook at, to get out of the work generally. Once again, good walk. This is coming nicely. She pops up a little bit every now and then, but nothing terrible. She goes right back into it. Once again, I'd like to see you stretch up. I would check this saddle fit just to be sure. Once again, talking about if she grinds occasionally, just be sure that saddle isn't too tight. That you have plenty of room. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you watching my wife's saddle fitting lecture, so you can learn a lot, without having to call in an expert. It's pretty easy to tell whether a saddle is fitting correctly, whether it's wide enough in the gullet to be able to get off of the spine and the ligaments that run alongside the spine. That's being one of the most important things, that you learn where the saddle fit area is. And in many cases, saddles are way too narrow and they sit on top of the ligaments instead of sitting on the muscle. But once again, I'm not close enough to be able to see that, but I'm just looking for things that might be causing some of your problem there. But I like how you don't fight with the horse. She starts to toss there a little bit, and you just send her on forward. You're never fighting the horse with your hands. So this is all really, really good. You have a good leg position. Looks like you're a little bit on your toes. I might like to see you. Remember, you should always have a feeling kind of lifting your toe up to keep your leg in the right position. And if you find that you can't actually do that, you need to shorten your stirrups a little bit so that you can get that happening. And depending on the horse's strength, his level of strength would be whether you want to do that or not. Now, once again, this sitting trot here not very useful. The horse kind of shortened on there. For me, unless this horse is stretched all the way down, you wouldn't want to be sitting on it. Once again, it doesn't matter how old the horse is, that you've had her, she's 10 years old, but it will still take you the same amount of time to put a top line on the horse and develop it to the point of collection, which is about a 2-year process. So you can see she gets a little stiff here. Gets better as we go, and once again, I like the fact that you're not fighting with the horse, you're just raising your hands and keeping the contact. And then she starts to stretch into a better contact. Your rhythm is good. I like the step. And once again, remember that in the classical system, we're teaching the horse to carry itself in the way that that nature intended, so to speak. So they get much happier about the work, so to speak, if we keep that there. Now she's stretching there. That's good. But as well as you've done here today, I'm sure that it's even more consistent now. And you've really done a good job with bringing her along. Good change of direction there with no big change of rhythm. Quite good. She can still be stretching a little deeper, but is quite active right there. So very good. It's interesting because I think I noticed you in a video earlier that was sent in, and I did notice somebody riding around trying to stretch their horse in the background, and I think that was you. So that was very good. You can certainly tell a difference, when you look at a ring full of horses going around, which ones are working over their backs and which ones are not. Once again, good rhythm here. She could stretch a little deeper there like that. That's more like what we're looking for. Really nice transition back to the walk. So once again, I would stay away from that sitting trot too much at this level. Once again, if you sit to the trot, only do it when the horse is stretched all the way down. Good idea also to be careful about those poles. Whoever set those up, I would suggest they put them further into the ring. And the way you kind of went over the corner of those, remember, I have seen more than one horse fracture a coffin bone by stepping on poles unintentionally. So you have to be careful about that, especially there used to be a lot of jumper trainers that used to put the poles in between the jumps to try to train the horse without actually training it. And I saw many horses with broken coffin bones from landing on top of the poles. So be careful about going through those indiscriminately. And when they're set up in the ring like that, I would put them further in so you have more room on the rail. Just a point. Because it would only take stepping on one of those, as you're going across there a little laterally, and that could really cause you could certainly pull a tendon or a myriad of other things. But much better trot here, starting to stretch back into it again. But you've done a really good job with getting yourself going with this. Just a few points once again. And remember, I like to see you just stretching up, carrying your weight a little better, engaging your core a little more. That is just bringing your abdominal muscles in, lifting your chest and flattening your shoulder blades into your back. I would take a look at this noseband thing. It would be interesting just to try the horse in a different bridle with a different kind of noseband, so to speak, just so that's not so low on the cartilage. And I definitely would check your saddle fit, just to be sure that isn't creating you some problems. You can, remember if it's too tight behind the shoulders, the horse will be running into that every time it tries to swing its legs, and you can actually create a great deal of problem and actually damage a horse quite severely by doing that, if that's the case. I'm not saying that it is. I'm saying just things that you should check, especially if your horse is occasionally grinding its teeth or something. We usually find that associated with something that bothers him. A really good stretch here in the trot. Good work. But for your first attempt at this, you say she were a little bit nervous, but I'd certainly never know it. You did a really good job here. Good swinging trot there. That's really nice. Now that's about optimal. Came up a little bit there, no big deal. You just get her to stretch back into it again. But how nice it is to see it there like that. That's actually quite nice. Very nice. And look how soft she is on the underneath of her neck. That's really good. And you start to see the belly begin to come up a little bit, what we're looking for. A pretty good change of rein there. Once again, I like how you're just not trying to force anything and keeping it moving forward, and the horse is getting better as we go. So that's what we're looking for. Won't be long before this horse will just stay, if she's not already, just staying in the stretch beautifully. You've done a really good job with this. I think your inconsistency problems will disappear here very shortly. Certainly is a beautiful shaded ring you have there to work in. Well done. So I look forward to seeing your next one, Diane. Really good job. I can only assume that the next one will be even better. So you've done a great job with this so far. I think we'll see a lot of improvement in this horse in the very near future. Very, very well done. This has been Will Faerber from Art to Ride. Hope that helps. Look forward to seeing you next time. It's going to like how you just made a nice, easy, calm transition back, and you're ending with the horse walking in the stretch. We should always begin and end at the same place. And on that note, I'll end this one. See you all next time. Thank you so much for joining us.